Hello, BookTube. This is Alan. Welcome to my channel here for Friday Reads. And first, I wanted to show you a catalog. This is Lambert Books. It's their March 2020 sales catalog. I just recently got this in the mail, and they have a large selection of the Library of America volumes, so it goes on for about 5 pages. And they're all half price. This is Henry James. There's about 9 volumes in the Library of America volume. It was about 9 pages. For instance, there's one here. Collected travel writings, the Continental Tour in France, Italy, Italian hours, and other travels. Henry James. The regular price was $40, and it's on sale for $18.98. So this is a Lambert book catalogs. Now we'll go on to what I'm reading and what I'm going to read and what I've finished. I've finished for my challenge in reading a book in a decade that the book was published in. This is March, so it's the decade of the 1920s. So this was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. It is published by Arcadius Press out of England, and it was published. This edition was published in 2018. The original one was by Virginia Woolf, was published in 2000. Excuse me, that was 1929. It's a series of essays that Virginia Woolf gave about feminism and about the women trying to succeed in all endeavors. Just do it. Just go for it. Just literature, art, anything. You know, we're tired of. And there's one. She starts off with the first chapter. But you may say we asked you to speak about women in fiction. What has it got to do with a room of one's own? I'll try to explain. When you ask me to speak about women in fiction, I sit down on the banks of a river and begin to wonder what the words meant. And she goes on to talk about different writers, George Jane Austen, the Brontes, George Eliot, Miss Gaskell, and some other women, and encourages women to get out and find a place in one's own. The next book that I'm reading is for March Mammoth. The March Mammoth read is Gai-Jin by James Clavell. I'm on page 394, chapter 22. The book is 1,234 pages long. This is the third book in the Asian Saga series. This one is about 1862. I'm enjoying this book and getting back into that type of Japanese culture that James Clavell was famous for when he wrote Shogun. And I already ordered the second one, Taipan, that's in this series. That took place in 1841. The main problem with the book is that there are a lot of characters. For instance, there's 16 characters in this book, and you have this one character named Angelique Richard, who is 18 years old, and the beloved of Malcolm Strong. And there is a situation in which Angelica is, she's engaged to Malcolm Strong. The problem is that she's Catholic and also French, and find out in the book that her father lost all the money gambling. And Malcolm Strong has been told by his mother in letters not to marry this Angelica Richard, and to just put her aside. And he is also losing money because of the North boycott and of the South during the Civil War in America when it takes place, and boycott. And so his holdings in the silk industry and the cotton industry, the mills in England, are in desperate need. So he's losing money also. So, but as I said, the problem with the book is that you read about the two characters, Malcolm and Angelica, and their problems that they're having. But then James Clavell will go on for will stop and then go on for 50 pages, talk about some other characters, and then come back to these two characters, where you're more interested in what's going on with these two characters, that you don't see these other characters also coming into play, like the ones who want to incite a war between the Gai-Jin, the foreigners, and the Japanese, so they can take over the shogun, the noble house, where the Lord Toranaga stays. And that's what they're trying to do. So it's kind of confusing at times, but it's a good read, and I'm gonna stick with the book. I'm gonna stick with the book, even though I'm about 395 or 4 pages. So I've been continue it. The next one I read is for March Mystery Madness. And this book, so I have to, I'm not doing any of the prompts, but I am going into mystery. And one of the things is a genre that I don't care for. I never liked it. And I have read 2 Sherlock Holmes books. And the problem with the Sherlock Holmes, even though a lot of people on BookTube praise Sherlock Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to the rooftops, I don't, because there's too much meticulous attention to detail, not only with Sherlock Holmes, but also with the client that comes to Sherlock Holmes. And it's like if you were with 10 other people and you saw a robbery take place, and the police came and they talked to me and 10 other people, they would have different views of what the robber looked like, what shoes he wore, what color hair he had. Was he wearing a coat? Was he wearing a jacket? Was he in shorts? Was he wearing, Jordan shoes, or he was wearing sandals and things like that? It's totally different when you read a Sherlock Holmes book, because the client comes in and meticulously in detail tells Sherlock Holmes everything about the person. Everything. It's like, well, he had a scar on his face. He has small nose. He had big ears. He blue eyes. He blonde hair. And he's wearing a green shirt. He walks with a limp. That is what I don't like. Never liked about Sherlock Holmes, because of that attention to detail. It drives me batty. Nobody does that. No wonder he's a great detective, because you're giving him all the clues to look for. It's ridiculous. So anyway, March Mystery Madness, basically, if you're looking for a genre you never read before, you pick someone that you like. Pick a writer that you like. There's 1,000 writers who write mysteries. You don't have to go with Sherlock Holmes. Please don't. Uh, Even though, people on BookTube said he's the greatest living detective ever. I disagree. Uh, so what you do is that you just pick a writer and you say, oh, I like this one. I don't like that one. And you just stick with one that you like or a couple of them that you like. So this one is Donna Leon, Suffer the Little Children. This is a Messiero Guido Renetti mystery. This is the 15th volume in the Guido Renetti mystery. And I gave up. I gave up on this book on page 75. The story starts off with a doctor and his wife are in bed. Their 18-month-old son is in another room. Some people break in, steal the boy, and beat up the doctor. And from there, it goes slow. The pacing is very, very, very slow. There's dialogue and dialogue, and it just goes too slow. And I don't know anything about the inspector, the detective. I don't know anything. How he feels, how he thinks, what he's doing, what he's wearing. It's like, does he like his cappuccinos? Does he drink espresso? I don't know. And it's frustrating when you don't know anything about the inspector. Now, this is the 15th book in the series. Maybe I need to read the first one and find out more about the inspector. But the problem with that is that I read Joe Nesbo's thrillers, and the first one I picked up was The Red Dress, which is the fifth or sixth book in the Henry Hole series. His last name's Hole, but it's pronounced Hule. And that series, I knew everything about Inspector Hule. I know everything about him. He was a drunk, disobedient to the rules, follows his own paths. And that was the fifth or sixth book in the series. And this one, no, not for me. The next mystery I picked up was this one, Anne Perry, Death of a Stranger. This is the William Monk novel. I'm on page 115. I believe this is like the 11th book in the William Monk novel, and this one is good. Talks about William Monk's, I think his wife Hester is a doctor and is treating patients who are been beaten up, who are in brothels, and this takes place during the Victorian period, and they can speak, and the ones that are brought in speak with a Cockney accent, and the railroad magnate has been found dead in one of the brothels. So William Monk is sitting there, and he is, and you get a feeling of the detective William Monk, because Death of the Stranger is a story of the railroad firm in London called Beaumont, and the person that is found dead was one of the partners, and a lady comes in to speak to William Monk and says that she has papers because her boyfriend works for the Beaumont Railroad Company, and William Monk finds his signature on one of the papers. And the woman is very distraught because he thinks that her boyfriend might be caught in some fraudulent deals. But, William Monk's in there. His name's on it. Because he used to be a working commerce before he went to became an inspector, a detective. And this is very good. It's excellent, and I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying it so far. It's on page 114, so I'm really liking this one. In fact, I was at the thrift store today and purchased another Anne Perry book. The next one, one I'm gonna start reading because this Virginia Woolf book was so short. It's only 120 pages, I believe. 127 pages. And this is for the decade of the 1920s that it's decided to go ahead and read another one that was on the calendar for Half Price Bookstore. But it wasn't on the list. Excuse me. It wasn't on the list of the 8 books that was on for the decade of the 1920s. So I looked up on Google to find out what books were printed in the 1920s. And I saw one that was very fascinating, very interesting. And this was The Storm of Steel by Ernst Junger. This is a original 1929 translation. This also takes the read book by a German author this year. And so this one, let me read the back of it for you. Originally published in 1920, The Storm of Steel is a vivid first-hand account of World War I trench combat lifted from the diary of Ernst Junger, a German infantryman who would grow into Europe's most talented writers. The book was first translated into English in 1929 by Basil Creighton, the acclaimed translator of many other classics of German literature, including Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf and B. Travers' The Treasures of Sierra Madre. I read the first 2 pages of this book. It's amazing, and it's called Orionville. The train stopped at Bazincourt, a small town in Champagne, and there we got out. With unbelievable awe, we listened to the slow pulsation of machinery on the front, a tune to which long gears were to accustom us. Far away, the white ball of a shrapnel shell melted in the gray December sky. The breath of the war passed by us with its peculiar horror. Did we imagine that nearly every one of us would be swallowed up in the days when that dull muttering over there broke out in unceasing thunder? We had left the lecture room, classroom, bench behind us. We had been welded by a few weeks' training in the corporate mass, inspired by the enthusiasm of one thought, to carry forward the German ideas of the 1870s. We had grown up in the material age, and each of one of us there was a yearning for a great experience, such as we have never known. The war had entered us like wine. We had set out in a rain of flowers to seek the death of heroes. The war was our dream, greatness, power, and glory. It was a man's work, a duel on the fields whose flowers would be stained with blood. There is no lovelier death in the world. Anything rather than stay at home, anything to make one with the rest. Now, just if you turn the page, it's interesting. You turn the page, he glorifies war right there in that sentence. But then an explosion happened close to the village. And he goes on the next page. I just lost my page. On the next page, he goes, immediately after black groups appeared in the empty village street, buried black bundles on stretchers or in joined hands. A feeling of unreality oppressed me as I stared at the figure streaming for blood whose limbs hung loose and who unceasingly gave a hoarse cry for help, as though death had him already by the throat. He was carried into the cottage with the Red Cross flag over the door. What was all this then? The war had shown its claws and torn off its pleasant mask. It was so mysterious, so impersonal. One had scarcely given a thought to the enemy, carrying on his secret and malignant existence somewhere behind. The impression of something arising entirely from beyond the pale of experience was so strange that it was difficult to see the connection of things. It was like a ghost at noon. That's A Storm of Steel by Ernst Junger, and this is original 1929 translation. So that's it for Friday Reads, and thank you for the comments, thank you for the likes. Do subscribe, and take care. Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend.